To round out our discussion on the pharmacologic tools, where are you on the high doses of EPA versus EPA DHA combined? Obviously, these are becoming very popular tools in the toolkit. Again, just at the pharmaco level, also at the supplement level, if you pick your supplements right. How do you think about these in terms of heart health and brain health?
So again, super enlightened question, and this is like one at the crux of some of the most exciting stuff going on right now. So omega-3, like we're talking about some other nutrients, we're eating like maybe an order of magnitude less of that than what we did in our evolutionary experience. Some people argue, when we get access to shellfish and seafood is when our brain expanded, 300 or 400,000 years ago. So the omega-3, like 20% of the dry weight of the brain is polyunsaturated fats, and its favorite polyunsaturated fat to plug into those membranes in the neurons is DHA. EPA is also, another super important omega-3. And a lot of my patients come in and they stop their they stop their omega-3 because their doctor told them, oh no, these don't work. And as you pointed out many times in your writings and whatnot, is even randomized controlled trials can be wrong, can be large and wrong if you're testing the wrong people, if you're using the wrong dose. And a lot of those trials were done with small doses, and these big meta-analyses, not to mention the Reduce It study, which recently tested the 4 grams of EPA in people who had heart disease or diabetes with other risk factors. You test and had triglycerides above 150. So you test the right people, give them a nice, robust dose, and you see these spectacular results from a nutrient. And a lot of the reasons doctors dismiss it is because, again, we don't get taught anything about nutrition. We have an inherent distrust that anything doing diet or supplements is worthless. And that is so untrue. And omega-3 is exhibit A. So the latest meta-analysis, there was one just out in Mayo Clinic Proceedings coming out this coming week. I wasn't on this, but one of my best friends was Chip Levy from down in Oshner. This is done with some Italian collaborators, but it's a really good meta-analysis of all the randomized data with omega-3. And they show for every gram per day of EPA DHA taken, you reduce risk of MI, cardiovascular death, and even trends towards all-cause mortality. But the point is, like a lot of the studies just use 1 gram, but if you use 2, 3, 4 grams, you see these really remarkable, like in the Reduce It study, 25 to 30% reduction in cardiovascular events and all-cause mortality, even in people, especially if they have triglycerides above 150. The question about whether it's EPA versus DHA, the evidence in that trial was EPA. But if you look at the meta-analysis, as long as you're getting that dose of EPA and DHA, I think it's important to have some DHA in the supplement too, just because, again, it's important for the membranes. And our evolutionary experience would suggest we weren't just eating EPA, we're using the combination.
I'll tell you, I agree with you completely on that. And I put this in the category of things I can't wait to learn. Sometimes I just get excited about the state of natural knowledge and how it continues to evolve. And I can't wait to see 5 years from now what we know on this question, because I was a bit surprised by the combined EPA DHA trial. I really expected that to be a favorable response, especially in light of what we saw in the 4-gram EPA Vasepa trial. So again, we just have to see where this thing goes. But I agree with you.
That was the strength trial you were talking about.
That's right. That was halted early. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be that 4 grams of EPA in that concentrated form is the way to go in a super high risk person for cardiovascular disease. But a combination of EPA and DHA through food, oily fish, as you said, might be what's conferring the real benefit. That's how we got it in nature. I think the broader question always comes to, is there a harm of higher doses of EPA and DHA? And I feel very confident now that the answer to that question is no. Provided you're getting your product through a clean source, I think the answer is no. And so we have zero affiliation with any companies that produce any of these products. And we had a third party do a validation of Carlson's, which is the one that we have preferred for our patients. And we found it to be pure, without contaminant, and it contained what it said it contained. So I'm always happy to pay that little bit of a premium for that product to at least get an over-the-counter version that's good, so I don't have to sort of fork over for a prescription version.
Yeah, I'm the chief medical officer for a company called CardioTab. So I don't get paid anything from them, but That's kind of my goal with them too. And we also source it from Norway. They know more about purifying, concentrating, detoxifying omega-3 than anybody in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And usually go over to Scandinavia there and visit with the leaders in that just to see what their latest and greatest stuff is. But yeah, this is a food, and I think it's super important not only for cardiovascular health, but Peter, the latest data on mental health is really important. Again, this is a fundamental component of cell membranes that most Americans, upwards of like 90% of Americans, aren't getting enough omega-3 in their diet, and it correlates with depression, ADHD, suicide, cognition, dementia, all those things. I mean, this is like a super easy way to markedly improve mental health. My wife, Joan, is constantly harping on this, that, there's all this violence and suicide and depression. And like the basic thing to do is take a nice high dose of omega-3 every day. It's harmless, it's cheap, and it has profound benefits. And lots of times you can keep people off of antidepressant medications. That and a well-absorbed curcumin with high dose omega-3 is as good as or better than any antidepressant out there. And they also help to improve brain function. And again, your doctor won't prescribe these, but these are very, very effective ways to improve mood, cognition, and probably reduce dementia in the long run. We have a paper coming out I sent you a copy of in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease showing that a highly absorbable curcumin, Curcumin, in a randomized trial. The study was TNF-alpha inhibition for preventing dementia. And TNF-alpha, as you know, is this master hormone of inflammation. And there's some really fascinating, which we outlined in this sort of systematic review, that the biologics that reduce TNF-alpha, like etanercept is the best one. It's this decoy receptor for TNF-alpha. And so it reduces inflammation. And there's multiple big studies of millions of people in databases. That's all observational data, but that it reduces risk of Alzheimer's disease 60 to 70%. Now, those are expensive biologics that sometimes can cause serious side effects, but curcumin is the active ingredient of turmeric. And if you use a highly absorbed one, you get some pretty impressive reductions in TNF-alpha that have been correlated in small randomized trials with reduction. And there's good animal models on this too. I mean, it's one of the most exciting things to me right now. Is I really think this is easily the most exciting thing ever for maintaining cognition, preventing Alzheimer's disease. And it still needs to be fleshed out, but there's some very good biological plausibility behind it and some fascinating animal data, human data, and even some small randomized trials. So.
Working with Richard Isaacson, who I've interviewed for this podcast and I'll be interviewing again shortly, we've sort of put together our in-house kind of playlist for basically once we identify patients that we deem high risk for Alzheimer's disease, which we define as age over 60, a relative that has a history of Alzheimer's disease, or at least one copy of an ApoE4 gene, or some other gene such as an anti-TNF gene or TOM40 or one of these other genes that tends to be associated with Alzheimer's disease, plus or minus ApoE4. We just have sort of a full court press approach. And one of the things on that list is indeed Curcumin, for exactly the reasons you've stated. I became pretty impressed with those data about 2 years ago. And so I was excited when you sent over that manuscript last week.